Emily had not planned to return to Maplewood. Not like this. The town felt smaller than she remembered, quieter, as if it had been waiting for her to leave and never quite expected her back. Her car rolled past tree-lined streets and familiar houses, but everything felt slightly out of place, including her. She told herself it was temporary. Just a few weeks until her apartment in the city was ready. Still, the thought did not ease the tight feeling in her chest as she parked in front of her mother's house. The house looked warm and welcoming, freshly painted, with lights glowing behind the curtains. Her mother's second chance at happiness lived inside those walls. Emily wanted to be happy for her, and she truly was. But moving into a new family came with quiet challenges she had not prepared for. She took a deep breath, grabbed her bag, and stepped out into the cool evening air. Daniel opened the door before she could knock. He had changed. The boy she barely remembered had become a calm, confident man. He stood tall, wearing a soft smile that felt genuine but cautious. "Hey, Emily, you made it," he said, stepping aside to let her in. "Yeah," she replied, returning the smile. "Long drive." Their greeting was polite, simple, and safe. That was how it was supposed to be. Inside the house smelled like dinner and fresh wood. Laughter drifted from the living room where her mother and stepfather waited with open arms. The evening passed smoothly, filled with conversation about work, weather, and plans. Everyone tried hard to make things comfortable. Emily appreciated the effort, but she remained aware of every movement, every sound, every shared glance. Later, when the house grew quiet, Emily stood in the hallway, unsure where to go. Daniel noticed her hesitation and pointed toward the guest room. "You'll be staying there. Bathrooms just across." "Thanks," she said. Their eyes met briefly. Nothing unusual. Nothing wrong. Yet something unspoken passed between them. Light, but noticeable. Like a door left slightly open. The next few days moved quickly. Emily adjusted to a routine she had not expected to return to. Mornings were rushed, evenings slow. Daniel worked from home, and she noticed him in small moments making coffee, typing at the dining table, stepping outside to take calls. He was quiet but kind, thoughtful in ways that did not demand attention. They spoke often, sometimes out of necessity, sometimes because conversation came easily. Daniel asked about her job, her move, her plans. He listened closely, not just waiting for his turn to speak. Emily found herself talking more than she usually did, sharing thoughts she often kept to herself. One afternoon, a power outage forced them both into the living room. Rain tapped softly against the windows, and the house felt closed in. They talked about childhood memories, awkward family gatherings, and dreams they had once had but quietly let go. "I thought I'd be somewhere else by now," Emily admitted, staring at the dark TV screen. Daniel nodded. "Me too." There was no judgment in his voice, only understanding. That made her chest ache in a way she did not expect. As days passed, Emily noticed the change in herself. She looked forward to their conversations. She felt calmer when Daniel was nearby. It felt wrong to name it, so she didn't. She told herself it was comfort. Nothing more. Still, late at night, she replayed moments in her mind. The way Daniel laughed softly instead of loudly. The way he paused before answering serious questions. The way silence between them never felt awkward. One evening, Emily stayed up late finishing work on her laptop. She heard footsteps and looked up to see Daniel standing in the doorway with 2 mugs. "I made tea," he said. "Thought you might want some." She smiled, surprised. "Thanks." They sat at opposite ends of the couch. The distance felt respectful, but the air between them felt charged. They talked quietly, careful not to wake the others. Emily shared her worries about starting over, about failing again. Daniel spoke about pressure, about expectations he never asked for. The conversation grew honest faster than either of them expected. Words flowed without effort. Time passed unnoticed. At some point, Emily realized how late it had gotten. She stood up quickly. "I should sleep." "Yeah," Daniel agreed, standing too. They paused near the hallway, facing each other. The house was silent. The moment stretched longer than necessary. "Good night," Emily said. "Good night," Daniel replied. She walked away, her heart beating faster with each step. In her room, she leaned against the door, confused by the rush of emotion she could not explain. She had done nothing wrong. Nothing inappropriate had happened. And yet, something had begun. Down the hall, Daniel stood alone for a long moment before. Turning off the lights, he told himself to be careful. He reminded himself of the boundaries that mattered. But as he lay awake in the dark, one thought refused to leave him. This was only the beginning. Daniel woke up early the next morning with a heavy feeling he could not explain. The house was quiet, and the soft light of dawn filled the kitchen as he made coffee. He told himself the unease was nothing more than poor sleep. Still, when Emily walked in, his focus slipped. She greeted him with a tired smile and poured herself a cup. Their conversation was light, almost careful. Whether work, small plans for the day. Both of them avoided anything deeper, as if an invisible line had been drawn overnight. But lines are hard to keep straight. They crossed paths often that week. Sometimes in the hallway, sometimes in the kitchen, sometimes in the living room where shared space made silence feel louder. Daniel noticed things he should not have noticed: how Emily focused when she worked, how her voice softened when she was unsure, how she looked relieved when he was around. He tried to stay busy. Long walks, extra tasks, more time outside the house. None of it worked. His thoughts returned to her without warning. Emily felt the shift too. Daniel was still kind, but something was different. He was more reserved, more aware of distance. She did not understand why it bothered her so much. She reminded herself that this was temporary, that she would be leaving soon. One evening, a sudden storm rolled in, heavy and loud. The power went out again, leaving the house dim and quiet. Emily sat at the dining table, staring at her phone with no signal and nowhere to focus her thoughts. Daniel joined her with a candle. "Looks like we're stuck again," he said. She laughed softly. "Seems like it." They talked fast and easy, filling the silence before it grew uncomfortable. Emily spoke about her job, the pressure to succeed, the fear of standing still while others moved ahead. Her words spilled out before she could stop them. "I feel like I'm always catching up," she said, her voice shaking. Daniel listened, without interruption. When she finished, he did not offer advice. He did not try to fix anything. He simply nodded. "That feeling doesn't mean you're failing," he said quietly. "Just means you care." The words reached her in a way she did not expect. Her eyes filled, and she looked down, embarrassed by this sudden emotion. "I'm sorry," she said. "I didn't mean to unload all that." Daniel shook his head. "You don't have to apologize." Without thinking, he reached out and placed his hand gently over hers. The touch was light, meant only as comfort. But the room changed. Emily froze. Not out of fear, but confusion. Her hand stayed where it was. She felt warmth, reassurance, and something deeper she was not ready to name. Her heart beat faster, and the candlelight seemed too close. Too intimate. Daniel realized it at the same moment. He pulled his hand back quickly, as if the movement itself could erase the moment. His face tightened, and he stood up. "I shouldn't have done that," he said. His voice was calm, but his eyes showed regret. "I crossed a line." Emily stood too, unsure what to say. She nodded slowly. "I know." The silence between them felt heavier than before. Not angry, not accusing, just full of things left unsaid. "I'm sorry," Daniel repeated. "I don't want to make things uncomfortable." Emily wanted to say it already was. Instead, she forced a small smile. "It's okay. We'll be fine." But they both knew it would not be that simple. That night, Emily lay awake, replaying the moment again and again. The touch had been brief, harmless on the surface, Yet it stirred something inside her. She felt guilty for not pulling away. She felt foolish for wanting to rewind time. She told herself it was stress, change, proximity, nothing more. Across the hall, Daniel stared at the ceiling, frustrated with himself. He knew better. Kay knew what that moment could mean if it grew into something else. Kay promised himself it would not happen again. The next day, he kept his distance. He left early. He stayed late. When he spoke to Emily, his words were polite and measured. He avoided eye contact longer than necessary. The warmth between them faded into something formal. Emily noticed immediately. The shift hurt more than the moment itself. She missed the ease they had shared, the comfort of being understood. She wondered if she had imagined the connection, if it had only existed in her mind. Days passed in this quiet tension. They moved around each other carefully, like strangers learning the rules of a shared space. No one mentioned the night of the storm, yet the memory stayed alive in every glance not held, every word not spoken. One afternoon, Emily found Daniel on the back porch, staring at the gray sky. She hesitated, then joined him. "You don't have to avoid me," she said softly. Daniel exhaled. "I'm not avoiding you. I'm trying to respect what's right." She studied his face and saw the struggle there. Not desire, but restraint. Not selfishness, but responsibility. "I never felt uncomfortable," she said honestly. Daniel finally met her eyes. "That's what scares me." They stood in silence, the air heavy but calm. No hands reached out. No boundaries were crossed. Again. But the truth was clear to both of them. Something had already changed. The distance between them grew quietly, but it filled the entire house. Emily felt it in the mornings when Daniel left before she woke up. She felt it in the evenings when he stayed in his room longer than usual. The comfort they once shared was gone, replaced by careful politeness that felt cold. Emily tried to focus on her work, but her thoughts wandered. She replayed their conversations, searching for mistakes. She told herself she was being sensitive, that Daniel was only being respectful. Still, the silence hurt more than she expected. Daniel was struggling in his own way. Keeping distance felt like the right choice, but it came with a cost. Every time he heard Emily's voice from another room, he had to stop himself from responding too quickly. He missed the ease, the honesty, the calm he felt around her. He reminded himself daily that feelings did not give permission. One evening, Emily came home late, exhausted. She dropped her bag by the door and sat on the couch, staring at nothing. Daniel noticed from the hallway. He paused, unsure whether to approach. "Long day?" he asked, keeping his voice neutral. She nodded. "Yeah, one of those days where everything feels heavier than it should." Daniel sat in the chair across from her, leaving space between them. "Want to talk about it?" Emily looked up, surprised. For a moment, the wall between them cracked. She almost said yes. Instead, she shook her head. "Not tonight." Daniel respected that. He stood up and wished her good night, but something in his expression told her he had wanted to stay that night. Emily realized the distance was not protecting her feelings. It was making them stronger. The next few days passed quickly. Our move-out date was approaching, and boxes began to appear in her room. Packing felt strange. Each item reminded her that this chapter was ending before it had even been understood. Daniel noticed the boxes and felt a sharp sense of loss he did not expect. He told himself it was relief. Space would fix everything. Still, his chest felt tight. One afternoon, Emily found Daniel in the garage, sorting through old tools. She stood at the doorway for a long moment before speaking. "Can we talk?" she asked. Daniel looked up and nodded. Of course. They stepped outside where the air was cool and quiet. No one else was home. Emily leaned against the railing, choosing her words carefully. "I feel like something broke between us," she said, "and I don't understand why we're pretending it didn't." Daniel rubbed his hands together, thinking. Because pretending feels safer than making it worse. Emily swallowed. For who? For both of us, he replied. Some feelings are better left alone. She looked at him, searching his face. Are they? Daniel met her gaze. Yes, even if they're real. The honesty hit her harder than she expected. Tears filled her eyes, but she did not look away. I didn't ask for this to happen, she said. I didn't plan to feel anything. Neither did I, Daniel said quietly. That's why I'm stepping back. The truth settled between them. There was no argument to win, no solution to reach, only acceptance. They stood there longer than necessary, letting the moment pass. No one touched. No one crossed a line. Later that evening, Emily sat alone in her room, surrounded by half-packed boxers. She finally allowed herself to feel the sadness she had been holding back. Not because she had lost something she could never have, but because she had felt understood in a way that was rare. Down the hall, Daniel sat at his desk, staring at an unfinished email. He knew he was doing the right thing. That knowledge did not make it easier. The house felt different now, quieter, heavier the next day. Emily received a call confirming her move-in date. Relief washed over her, followed quickly by regret. Leaving would end the tension, but it would also end the connection. That evening, she found Daniel on the porch, watching the sunset. She joined him without asking. I'm moving out on Saturday, she said. Daniel nodded. I know. I don't want us to end this thinking something went wrong, she added. Daniel turned to her. Nothing went wrong. We just noticed something we couldn't ignore. Emily smiled sadly. I'm glad we noticed. So am I, he said. It means we cared enough to stop. They sat side by side, close but not touching, watching the sky darken. The moment felt final but peaceful. Some truths do not need action to be powerful, and sometimes choosing restraint is the most honest choice of all. Saturday arrived sooner than Emily expected. Morning light filled her room, revealing boxes stacked neatly against the walls. The space already felt empty, like it knew she was leaving. She dressed quietly, moving with purpose, trying not to let emotion slow her down. Downstairs, the house was calm. Her mother and stepfather had gone out early, giving her space without saying so. Emily appreciated that. She carried the first box to the car, breathing in the cool air as if it might steady her. Daniel stepped outside a moment later. I'll help, he said simply. They worked fast. No wasted words, no awkward pauses. Each trip to the car felt like closing a door. Emily noticed how careful Daniel was, how he handled her things with respect, as if every box mattered. When the last item was loaded, they stood by the driveway, unsure what came next. I didn't think this would feel so heavy, Emily said. Daniel nodded. Some endings do that, even when they're right. She leaned against the car, looking at the house one last time. I learned a lot here. So did I, Daniel replied. They shared a quiet moment, filled with understanding rather than regret. Emily turned to face him fully. I want you to know, she said, I don't see this as a mistake. Daniel's expression softened. Neither do I. It showed me the kind of person I want to be. She smiled. Me too. There was no need to say more. They both knew what could not be said. Daniel opened his arms slightly, giving her a choice. Emily stepped forward and they shared a brief, respectful hug. It was warm, sincere, and careful. Nothing lingered longer than it should. When they stepped back, something felt lighter. Emily got into her car and started the engine. She rolled down the window. Take care of yourself. You too, Daniel said. You're going to be fine. She believed him. As she drove away, Emily felt a mix of sadness and peace. She thought about how easily things could have gone differently, how much harder that path would have been. Instead, they had chosen honesty over impulse. The road ahead opened wide, full of unknowns. For the first time in weeks, her thoughts felt clear. Back at the house, Daniel stood in the driveway long after the car disappeared. The quiet no longer felt tense. It felt earned. He went inside and noticed how much space her absence left behind. The guest room door stood open, empty and clean. He closed it gently, then moved through the house, adjusting to the new silence. Later that day, he sat at his desk and finally finished the email he had avoided. He felt focused again, grounded. That evening, the family returned and life resumed its normal rhythm. Dinner was shared, laughter returned, and the house slowly reclaimed its balance. Days passed. Emily settled into her new apartment, building routines, reconnecting with friends, moving forward. She thought of Daniel sometimes, not with longing, but with gratitude. The connection had been real, and that was enough. Daniel also moved forward. He spent more time outdoors, focused on work, then allowed himself to grow from the experience rather than regret it. They stayed in touch in small ways. Holiday messages, occasional updates. Friendly, warm, and appropriate. What they shared became a quiet chapter in their lives, meaningful without being acted upon. Sometimes the most powerful love stories are not about what happens, but about what doesn't. They had crossed a boundary by feeling something unexpected. They honored it by choosing restraint, and in that choice, they found maturity, respect, and peace.